Thank you so much for joining us today for a lunch date with our dietitian, Lynette. So without further ado, welcome to today's Series 1 for Dietitian Day on taking down the infamous trio. So today with us, we have our speaker, Lynette, who is a dietitian, and she'll share more about this later on. So before we begin, I'd like to run through some quick house rules first. So for those who are new over here, we're using the webinar function. So if any questions, there's a Q&A box rather than a chat box at the bottom of your bar. Please click on that, and then in it, you can type your questions. So you can type your question anonymously, or you can leave us your name, and then our speaker, Lynette, will then answer at the end of the session. Yeah, so at the end also, after today's talk also, as we want to actually improve our session to make it a better experience for our future participants, if you are returning health talk participant, please do stay back to actually help us fill up an online survey just to let us know your feedback and enable us to do better for the next session. Thank you so much. So without further ado, I'll hand over the time to Lynette.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Lynette, a dietitian here, working at Tan Tock Seng. So thanks for taking the time out to join me for today's session, and I hope today the presentation will be informative for all of you. So I'll be talking about how we can prevent pressure, high cholesterol, high sugar levels with healthy eating today. And then we will conclude at the end with the question and answer. Okay, so the title for this presentation would be to take down the infamous trio. So what the infamous trio actually consists of is high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and also the high blood sugar levels, which is known as diabetes mellitus. So in Singapore, this is the statistics comparison from 2017 to 2020. So as you can see from the bar graph, unfortunately, these chronic diseases have increased over the years. So there are some risk factors that we can help to manage these chronic diseases, to prevent and manage them. So over the right column, it shows non-modifiable risk factors, which are things that we cannot change. So family history, gender, and age. Then over to the right column are the modifiable ones, which are factors that you can change. So things like being overweight, obesity, smoking, alcohol, diet, and a sedentary lifestyle, meaning lack of exercise. So today's talk will focus more on the dietary aspect. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we'll focus about healthy eating. So to help to prevent and manage these diseases. So incorporating a healthy, well-balanced diet using My Healthy Plate. So over the image on the right here, it shows you can use it as a tool when you go out to have your meals or eating at home. Having half a plate with fruits and vegetables, a quarter plate with whole grains, and also a quarter plate with your meat and other proteins. So like your dairy products or your tofu and egg. So now I'll move on to talk about salt and blood pressure. Okay. Okay, high blood pressure is actually known as hypertension. So this occurs when the heart is required to pump harder for blood to flow through. So if this happens persistently, the blood pressure naturally increases as well. So over here, the image shows you a rough guide on how much for normal, borderline, and high blood pressure is. And then we'll talk about salt. So why salt is because a diet high in salt can increase your risk of getting high blood pressure. And also with high blood pressure, it also increases the risk of getting stroke. So the recommended daily sodium intake is about 2,000 milligrams per day, which is equivalent to 5 grams or about 1 teaspoon of salt. So like the image here on the right. In Singapore, we are actually consuming about an average of 3,600 milligrams of sodium, which is about equivalent to 9 grams of salt per day. So that is about almost 2 times the recommended amount. And most of it comes from added salt and sauces when cooking or eating out. And studies do show that blood pressure can be lowered when your intake of salt is reduced to less than 5 grams per day, so meaning less than 1 teaspoon of salt per day. So where do all these salt and sodium come from are things like your seasonings and your sauces, like your chili, your ketchup, your oyster sauce or dark sauce when you use when you're cooking, canned or preserved food products, even fish ball, fish cake, or like ham or sausages, or even ready to eat meals and snacks like your instant noodles or salted peanuts and your chips. So all these food sources contain quite high amounts of sodium. So moving on to how we can help to reduce some salt, the salt intake when eating outside food is skipping the gravy and soup. So examples here are the laksa and the mee siam. So if you were to see the image for the laksa with gravy is about 20 grams of salt. And then if you were to eat it without gravy, it's 4 grams of salt. So that is actually 5 times less amount of salt. So for the mee siam with gravy is about 7 grams of salt, and without gravy is 2.5 grams of salt. So just to reinforce again, the recommended amount is about 5 grams of salt per day. Another example is chee cheong fun. So usually when we buy chee cheong fun outside, they'll serve with a sauce. And what you can actually request is to skip the sauce, or if not, to ask for the sauce to be served on the side. If it's a bit tasteless, you can consider adding some sesame oil. Another 2 tips would be when buying dishes outside, avoid those with preserved meat, vegetables, or egg, and to opt for those no added salt or sauce options. Okay, so for cooking at home, how can we actually reduce salt intake is to choose fresh produce over processed, preserved, cured, and smoked food. So meaning choosing lean meat like fresh chicken, fresh pork, fish over ham or sausages or even smoked salmon. And then to choose reduced salt or no added salt products. Try using herbs and spices like onion, ginger, garlic to enhance the flavors of the dishes, and to avoid additional sauces, seasonings, and gravies. So overall, hypertension, high blood pressure isn't just to reduce salt intake, but there are also other components of a healthy diet which are important, and I'll talk about it in the later slides. So something to note is that food products that are labeled reduced salt, sodium, or no added salt, they still do contain salt. So you have to bear in mind the amount of salt you put with these food products, because excessive consumption will still lead to higher risk of high blood pressure and also other issues like stroke. And gourmet salt such as sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, they unfortunately do not provide any health advantages compared to table salt, and they do contain similar amounts of sodium. Okay, so now moving on to fats and cholesterol. Okay, high cholesterol is also known as hyperlipidemia. So this occurs when there are high levels of fats in the blood. So these fats are actually cholesterol and triglycerides in our bodies. So having too much of these cholesterol or triglycerides will cause a build-up of fatty deposits in our blood vessels, leading to blockage and reduced blood flow. So looking at the image at the bottom here, as you can see, the normal artery on the left side is where there's no fatty build-up. And then in the middle, the yellow portion, it shows the fat build-up, which causes narrowing of artery, which causes a reduce in blood flow. And then at the image on the most right-hand side is it shows the heart, where there's a blockage of an artery in the heart, and then in the brain, then it can cause a stroke. So cholesterol in our blood comes from two sources. So production from the liver and also from the foods that we eat. So blood total cholesterol comprises of a few different ones. So high density lipoprotein, which is short form is HDL, it's known as the good cholesterol. And low density lipoprotein LDL is commonly known as the bad cholesterol, together with the triglycerides. So there are four different types of fats: polyunsaturated fat, monounsaturated fat, trans fat, and saturated fats. So looking at the diagram below, you can see clearly that the trans fat and saturated fat with the red cross are the ones that are the not so good ones. And then the unsaturated fat, which is the mono and poly with the green tick, are the healthier options. So saturated fat, focusing on saturated fat in the middle here, like I mentioned, is the unhealthy one. So what it does is that it increases your LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol. So it is usually found in this kind of food sources, like your fried food, your fried chicken, your full cream milk, coconut milk, ghee, and even butter. So, and then now moving on to trans fat. So over the left-hand side, trans fat increases your LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, and decreases your HDL, which is the good cholesterol. So trans fat are usually found in these food sources, like pastries, your cookies, biscuits, and also fried items. Okay, so now we'll move on to talk about the healthy fats. So over here on the bottom right, polyunsaturated fat, it actually lowers your LDL cholesterol, so it brings down the bad cholesterol, and it can be found in vegetable oils such as olive oil, canola oil, fatty fish like salmon, tuna, sardines, and some nuts and seeds here. Monounsaturated fat, similar to polyunsaturated fat, it also reduces your bad cholesterol levels, and they can be found in similar food products. Similarly, like the vegetable oils, olive oil, canola oil, avocado, and some nuts and seeds. So you may find that both of them contain different types of nuts. So for the monounsaturated, there's almonds, walnuts, hazelnuts, and then maybe let me just show you. For the polyunsaturated, they do have like sunflower seeds, sesame seeds. So mainly because these nuts, they contain either more of the polyunsaturated fats or the monounsaturated fats. But having any of these nuts will provide you the benefits of lowering your bad cholesterol. Okay, so for cholesterol content, right, it's actually a diet. So a diet high in cholesterol will tend to increase your blood cholesterol levels. So they can only be found in foods from animal sources such as organ meat, egg yolk, animal fat, seafood, and even ikan bilis. So knowing the cholesterol content in certain foods can help you make healthier food choices. So the recommended daily intake is about 300 milligrams per day. For those with high cholesterol, it's recommended to limit to 200 milligrams per day. So over, you can see on the right-hand side, the table here. So the red ones, the top four, these are some examples. The top four, which is highlighted in red, have have higher cholesterol content, followed by the yellow one, which is moderate cholesterol content, and lastly the green one, which has the lowest cholesterol content. So as you can see, the ones with the higher cholesterol contents are the ones that are organ meat and then seafood, and then the egg yolk as well. So how can we reduce the cholesterol, saturated and trans fat and the other bad fats intake when eating outside food? Is removing the skin or visible fats from the meat. So let's say, example, if you are ordering chicken rice, you can remove the skin of the meat, or if not, you can ask them to help you remove. And then choosing plain rice or flavored rice, asking for no or less gravy. So an example here is the nasi lemak. So nasi lemak with the deep fried chicken wing, fried egg, ikan bilis, and chili. It is estimated to have about 10 teaspoons of oil. So a healthier alternative would be going for the nasi padang with skinless chicken, boiled egg, and stir-fried vegetables. So the difference is quite large. So if you were to choose the healthier option, it would have about 3 teaspoons of oil as compared to 10 teaspoons of oil. Another example is laksa. So laksa has about 15 teaspoons of oil. And then the healthier option would be sliced fish bihun soup with no milk would be about approximately 1 teaspoon of oil. So when going outside to eat, choose soup noodles over fried or dried noodles, and leave behind soup and gravy. Okay. So for cooking at home, some tips is to, some cooking methods which are healthier would be to grill, bake, roast, steam, microwave, stew, or boil your food. Choose unsaturated oils and use minimal amount when cooking. Remove the visible fats from meat. Limit deep frying to once a week. Replacing a coconut milk with healthier option milk such as low fat or soy milk, and try to use a non-stick pan. Okay, so something to note regarding butter or margarine, which is healthier. Butter is actually made from animal sources which contain saturated fats that are unhealthy, and margarine mostly contains unsaturated fats, which are the healthier version. Margarine was a concern previously because it used to have unhealthy trans fat, but this has been regulated by MOH 2 years ago, such that the amount of trans fat present is minimal. So when shopping for spreads outside, go for the ones that has the least amount of saturated fat. Also, to note is that even though the polyunsaturated fat and the monounsaturated fat are healthier, they still do contain high in calories. So consuming excessive amounts with food, excessive amounts of these healthier fats will still cause weight gain, resulting in an increased risk of high cholesterol, blood pressure, and diabetes. So always remember that moderation is key. Okay, so now I'll talk about diabetes, on how we can prevent or reduce the risk of getting and manage them, diabetes. So diabetes is a disease that occurs when your blood sugar levels is too high, and it is obtained from food and sugar is obtained from food is actually used as the body's main source of energy. So our body produces a hormone called insulin. So what this hormone does is that it helps to bring the sugar into our cells to be used for energy. However, in type 2 diabetes, it does not make enough insulin or does not use the insulin well, causing an accumulation of sugar in the bloodstream. Okay. So the tips to prevent or manage diabetes. So firstly, using My Healthy Plate as a guide for a well-balanced meal. So like I mentioned earlier, using My Healthy Plate a quarter would be your whole grains, which is your brown rice. The other quarter would be your protein food, so like your fresh meat, fresh fish, and then the other half would be your vegetables. So another important tip is to actually maintain an ideal body weight. So a body mass index of 18.5 to 22.9. Anything above 23 BMI would be recommended for weight loss. And studies have shown that with 5 to 10% weight loss, there will be an improvement in your blood sugar levels, and also it helps to lower the risk of developing heart diseases. Not only, so with weight loss, there are also other benefits, which include less reliance on the diabetic medications, and also an improved quality of life. So choosing whole grains over refined grains can also help. So over here, as you can see the line graph, the green line shows after eating whole grains. So things like your brown rice, your wholemeal bread. So after eating them, it increases your blood sugar level slowly because they contain a higher fiber content. So as compared to the refined grains like your white rice, white bread in the red line, it increases your blood sugar level even faster. So these are some sources of whole grains and refined grains. Okay, consuming adequate amounts of fiber also helps to provide satiety and regulate your blood sugar levels. So in Singapore, the recommended fiber intake is about 20 grams for women and 26 grams for men. So this equates to 2 servings of fruit and 2 servings of vegetables per day. So some sources of fiber other than fruits and vegetables is the whole grain products and also some beans, legumes, and nuts. So having main meals at regular timings are also important because this helps to regulate your blood sugar levels and prevents overeating or skipping meals. Avoiding excessive carbohydrate intake. So if you're unsure about this, please consult a dietitian to recommend the amount of carbohydrate to eat in a day. Also, lastly, to reduce your refined sugar intake, such as sweets, desserts, and sugar-sweetened beverages like your soft drinks and your fruit juice. So now we'll talk about sugar. Although sugar does not directly link to diabetes, but having an high amounts of sugar consumption can increase the risk of having diabetes. So what is sugar is that it is a carbohydrate that occurs naturally in fruits, vegetables, grains, and dairy products, and it's often added during food processing or used as a preservative. And added sugars are largely empty calories that provide very little to no nutrients. So sugar consumption should be no more than 10% of our daily calorie intake. And for most adults, that is approximately 7.5 to 9 teaspoons of sugar based on 1005 to 1008 daily calorie intake. And in Singapore, similar to sugar, to salt, Singapore residents are actually consuming an average of 12 teaspoons of sugar daily, which is 20% more than the recommended amount. So these are some sources of refined sugars like your cakes, your kueh, fruit juice, soft drinks, your sweets, and your ice creams. Okay, so when going out, these are some tips to reduce your sugar intake. So instead of going for the coffee or tea with the condensed milk, you can opt for the ones without milk and sugar. For bubble tea, it's about 10 teaspoons of sugar. This is with pearl. The healthier option would be on the right, which is the oolong tea without milk and sugar, which gives no sugar at all. Soft drinks, the regular ones have about 7 teaspoons of sugar, and then the ones that are sugar-free or diet-free, they contain 0 teaspoons of sugar. For malted drinks with condensed milk, it's about 4 teaspoons. And then the healthier option would be a cocoa drink without milk and sugar, and that is equivalent to about 0 teaspoon of sugar. Okay, so do you know, so for sugars, they are actually naturally present in fruits and they do not negatively impact our health. Fruits, they do not just provide sugar, they also provide energy, fiber, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, which are beneficial for our health. There are also different types of sugars found in fruits, such as glucose, sucrose, and fructose. There have been concerns raised regarding fructose found in fruits for its negative health impact, but this is actually mainly contributed by the added sugars from foods with high fructose corn syrup. So these are some examples are like the sweets and the soft drinks. So fruits taken in moderation, it does not provide too much fructose to cause negative health impacts. So making a healthier choice when eating outside or even buying food products, always look out for the healthier choice symbol and also the Nutri-Grade grades. Yeah, so opt for the ones with the A grade and the B grade. So to conclude today's presentation, mainly is to adopt a healthier diet using my healthy plate as a tool, choosing food and beverages with healthier choice symbol or the Nutri-Grade A or B, increasing fiber intake, limiting high sodium, saturated and trans fat, and also refined sugar intake, and to choose healthier outside food and beverages. And lastly, to also maintain an ideal body weight.
Okay, thank you, Lynette. Yeah, so for those who joined in recently and missed the earlier announcements, once again, if any questions for our speaker for Lynette today, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom webinar function that you're able to see. You can click on it and then type your questions away. So thank you so much for the people who have submitted currently. So without further ado, I think there's a lot of questions. Please feel free to so I'll hand over time now to Lynette to actually answer some of your questions. Yeah, Lynette, please. Sorry, just give Lynette a bit of time because there's a lot of questions that came in. She's just looking through and then she'll answer them.
Okay, so I got a question from Li Ming. So thanks for the question. So his question is, what foods and fruits can effectively reduce the bad cholesterol? So okay. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, let me go back to show the slides. Okay, so yeah, like I mentioned earlier, the polyunsaturated fat and monounsaturated fat food sources can help to reduce your bad cholesterol. So these are some examples. They are mostly found in oil, fatty fish, and nuts and seeds, not too much from fruits. Okay. Same for the monounsaturated fat. These are some of the options. But overall, having a healthy and well-balanced diet, and also um, ensuring that we maintain a healthy BMI would effectively help to also would help to reduce your bad cholesterol, and it's not solely just based on the food sources that have the healthier fats.
Okay, so we have another question from attendee also. So from the slides, eggs are bad.
Okay. Okay, thanks for the question. So basically, what from the slide shown here, hold on, let me go back to that slide. Yeah. Okay. So it shows over here, it doesn't say that eggs are bad, but it says that it shows that the content of the cholesterol in egg yolks are quite high. So if anyone has like high cholesterol, it's recommended to limit the egg yolk content.
Yeah, so hopefully that answers your question. Okay, we have another question regarding NutriGrade. So I understand you know that it was recently rolled out also. So the question by Patricia is, how do you read the percentage? Is it in comparison with other foods?
Okay, sorry, I was looking. Okay, yeah. So, like Stephanie mentioned, so the question is how to read the percentage, and is it in comparison with other foods? So the nutri-grade ones, generally we recommend to go for the ones that are grade A and B, because they contain lesser sugars. So grade A is about less than 1% of sugar, and for grade B is about 1 to 5%. Oh, okay, thanks. So usually for nutri-grade products, right, it's not optional for the regulation. It's not optional for the food products to be labeled A or B, but it's mandatory for those that are labeled C and D. So nutri-grade food products, they actually grade it based on the sugar content and also saturated fat content in that specific food products. Yeah. So when buying these food products, always look out for the sugar content and also the saturated fat content. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lynette. So I have another question from Lily. Actually, two questions. So the first question is, blending of nuts or fruits lose its initial nutrients? Maybe get Lynette to address that first.
Okay, thanks, Vivi, for the question. So technically, if you were to blend it on your own nuts and fruits, it's fine. Just that sometimes fruits, when you blend, depending on the blender, if the pulp is removed, then the amount of fiber would also be reduced.
And then the second question is it healthy to drink fruit juice?
Okay, so for fruit juice, they do contain quite high amount of sugar because it requires quite a number of fruits to make the fruit juice itself. So depending on what if it's like if you were to purchase it from outside, always look for the healthier choice and also the nutri-grade to guide you along, because fruit juice, they do naturally contain quite high amounts of sugar.
Yeah, so thank you, Lily. Hope that answers your question. Okay, we have a question from an anonymous attendee. So the question goes, can we take more foods that are rich in potassium to lessen the effects of high sodium levels in our bodies?
So generally, taking more foods that are rich in potassium, if there are no contraindications like such as any kidney issues, then it's fine. Uh, mm, there are also like for sodium alternatives, like to lessen the high sodium intake, there's also a salt alternative, which is a potassium salt. So that actually contains lesser salt content. So like I mentioned, if there's no contraindication, then for to take that kind of salt, then with potassium, which is replaced by the potassium sorry, let me rephrase. So usually for that kind, the potassium salt, what's the difference is that the potassium replaces the sodium mineral, so that's why it contains lesser salt. So if there are no contraindications, then that's okay.
Yes, so hopefully that answers your question. Okay, we have another question is specific for the diet for the people with diabetes. So I think concern is, there's fasting month that's coming up. How many dates would it be recommended for a diabetic to take in one day?
Okay, so just wanted to clarify, is the question on like the how many dates can you eat, or um uh yeah, is it about how many dates can you eat in a day? And because dates they are also naturally high in sugar, so taking so it depends also on whether there's any medical like background like diabetes. So depending on yeah, the medical background. So I just want to clarify the question. Okay, so if let's say if you have diabetes, then probably we can limit to about 2 to 3 dates per day. Okay. Of course, to also check the sugar content, even those with, even if there's no medical issue like diabetes, we should also limit the intake of dates in a day because of the sugar content.
Okay, so sorry, yeah, there's been a lot of questions coming in, so trying to look through. So, okay, we have one from Chi Quen asking what type of cooking oil should be used, sunflower or canola?
So both cooking oils are actually the healthier virgin ones. So they both contain also the polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. So using in moderate amounts are fine. Yeah.
Okay, for interest of time also, we're almost at time. We'll just take one last question. So we have a question from Li Ming asking how many eggs can be taken per week for a healthy diet?
Okay, so for eggs, let me just go back to the slide. Mm. Oh, okay. Okay, so for eggs, if you were to say like whole eggs, actually the recommended daily intake, like I mentioned, is about 300 milligrams per day. So there isn't a specific amount of how many eggs to take in a day, as long as we is below about 300 milligrams. But let's say if like there's high cholesterol, we should limit to about 200 milligrams. So what we suggest is about 2 to 3 egg yolks in a week. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so thank you everyone for all your questions. So sorry that we didn't have time to cover all the questions, but if there's any question that you wanna ask, feel free to speak to a dietitian if you're seeing one. Alternatively, is you can share with us some of your questions, and then we will check in with Lynette separately after the talk. Yeah, so just to wrap up today's session, let me just go back to my last slide. Yes. Okay, so please let us know how we did today. You can scan the QR code here, or you can click on the link that my colleague will be sending through the chat to let us know your feedback. And then just to share about today's session, we will not be circulating the slides, but we will have our recording available to watch on our YouTube page. So do keep a lookout for that. You can also scan the QR codes on the right here to see some of our resources available in Tan Tock Seng's Health Library. And also, if you're interested in our future talks, you can also scan our Facebook page or to visit our Instagram page to see what are the upcoming talks they can register for. Then for the rest, if you are coming in again for tomorrow's day 2 for our dietitian series, we look forward to welcoming you then. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today. I'll just leave this slide on for a while. Yes, so I hope everyone have a great rest of the day, and then we'll see you at our next talk. Thank you so much.